Board Member Russell. Board Member Maroney.
Here?
Board Member Helton.
Here.
Board Member Frederickson.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Of regular meeting minutes of February 22, 2023. I have a motion, do I have a second? Do I have a second on the motion?
I second it.
Thank you, Wesley. All right, we have a second. The minutes as they are will be accepted. My vote, sorry, rusted. We have a vote on the minutes.
Mr. Frederickson, turn your mic on.
I did.
Board Member Russell.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I hear none. Thank you. Old business? I see none. Item number 3, new business. Angle Homes appeal of front setbacks for R1 I-20 zone. A request from Angle Homes LLC applicant and property owner to appeal the Community Development Director's decision to not issue a certificate of occupancy due to the required front yard setback of 30 feet not being met within the I-20 zoning district for the property described as lots 21 and 22 of block 14, lot 7 of block 16, lot 6 of block 18, lots 1 and 2 of block 19, Rancho Santa Fe IV tract 1953-I, section 15, township 21, north range 16, west. Boy, if that isn't a mouthful.
It certainly is. Good morning, board members, both here in person and participating on Zoom. I'm Mike Rodriguez. I'm the Interim Development Services Director. So I'll be presenting this item to you. As you indicated, this is an appeal by Angle Homes on some front setback issues on a couple of, on 2 homes that they're building out in the Rancho Santa Fe area. This is not just to issue a certificate of occupancy, it's primarily to allow construction to continue. These setback issues were actually caught at the first one of the primary inspection phases right after the permits were issued. So if I can give you a little bit of background, what occurred is back in December, let's see if I can get this screen to come down. Back in December, Angle Homes had applied for a building permit to construct a new single-family residence in the R120 zone in Rancho Santa Fe at the address off the top of my head at 4263 Firethorn Avenue. The permit, the application was made with a site plan that showed a 20-foot front setback. The minimum setback in the zoning code for an R120 zone is 30 feet in the front, minimum 30 feet in the front. We discovered that actually had changed with the adoption of the new zoning code that was adopted in April of 2021. In the previous code, we discovered that the front setback had been 20 feet. However, that did change with the adoption of the new code in 2021. Let's see if I can get these PDF attachments to open up. There you go. What occurred with this first permit, the one on Firethorn, was the site plan that was submitted with that permit was shown with a 20-foot front setback. Staff that reviewed that inadvertently and erroneously approved it with the 20-foot front setback, and then when our inspector went out there to perform the first inspection on the foundation inspection, discovered that it was set at 20 feet rather than the required 30-foot front setback. So then our inspector issued a notice of correction to have the builder correct it to properly comply with the 30-foot front setback requirement. Subsequent to that, Angle Homes also had submitted another permit for another home on Clay Springs Drive that was submitted also showing a 20-foot front setback. However, our plans examiner corrected that to show the compliant 30-foot front setback for that lot in that zone, in that subdivision. Same thing happened again. The inspector went out there to perform an inspection on the foundation and footings, discovered that it was at 20 feet, even though the corrected site plan had showed the minimum 30-foot front setback, and issued a notice of correction as well. It was after those two actions that Angle Home submitted an appeal that they believe that the 20-foot, because it was in the old code, should have been applicable in this case. However, the code, as I indicated, was changed to a 30-foot front setback with the adoption of the new code in April of 2021. A little bit of history there. There had been a number of workshops with the public and with the Planning and Zoning Commission and other members of the community to talk about the changes in the zoning code. Early on, it was shown that the intended change for the 30-foot front setback was indicated in a PowerPoint presentation that was made at those early meetings in 2020. In fact, I have an exhibit of one of those pages that was made in October of 2020. And I can show that to you here if you'd like. So I mean, let's see if I can get this to work correctly. So it was intended for the code to be changed to have a 30-foot front setback in the R120 zone, which is a 20,000 square foot or larger lot. It's typically a half an acre lot, which is really more in line with what typical large lot subdivisions have. Here's a copy of the front page. It's on the wrong angle. However, this is what was presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission in October of 2020 at one of the early workshops. And on this next page, see if I can rotate that. This is what was proposed. There's my rotate button on this. There it is. If I can enlarge that. This is what was presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission and the public. Oh, losing my page on this. Forgive me for being a little bit of a novice at this. This is a different system than one I'm accustomed to using. I guess what I'm trying to explain is that with the adoption of the new zoning code, it was intended for this front setbacks in the R120 zone to be changed to 30 feet from the original 20 feet that had been in the previous code. There you see on that table there in the center of the page, where the R120 shows 30-foot front setback. And that's what was intended to be changed in the zoning code, and went through all the process with the public hearings and the ultimate adoption, also at a public hearing by the city council in April of 2021. So that requirement for a 30-foot front setback has been in place since the new code was adopted in April of 2021. That was the purpose for us asking for the corrections to be made. One of the other things I did want to indicate is in working with Angle Homes, I found some provisions in the zoning code that does allow for some staggered front setbacks in the residential zones. So I offered up to Angle Homes that they be able to still comply with the zoning code if they changed the foundations on those two lots to 25 feet rather than 30 feet, and we would accept that and allow them to continue construction. They chose not to pursue that option and continued on with this appeal that we're hearing today. One of the things I wanted to also note that we've discovered is we've conducted our research on these applications, that the houses that have been permitted and built immediately next door and across the street from both of these lots in question today were submitted and approved and built with 30-foot front setbacks. So right next door to each of these lots that they're proposing having 20-foot front setbacks, those homes were built with 30-foot front setbacks, and which is typical what most applicants, including Angle Homes, have been building in the city in that R120 zone. Typically, they build it with this what I'm showing up on the screen now is the first permit that was issued on Firethorn in the pink highlight. That's the lot in question. Immediately, that's lot 1. Immediately next to that is lot 2, and then across the street diagonally is lot 7. Both lots 2 and lot 7 were submitted, approved, and constructed with 30-foot front setbacks across or there on Firethorn. And then up at the top of this page, outlined in green, is the one on Clay Springs. The one immediately, that's a lot 21, on lot 22 next to it, and across the street on lot 6. Both of those were submitted and approved with 30-foot front setbacks. And those are actually constructed and occupied homes now. I believe that explains where we are with this and why staff went ahead and approved them in the way that we did. Like I said, the first permit was approved erroneously with incorrect information. It was an oversight on the plan reviewer's part. However, it was corrected by the building inspector out in the field when he made note that it didn't comply with the front setback and issued the notice to correct. We've asked Angle Homes to comply with the front setback requirement of 30 feet on both of those homes that are still in the initial stages of construction. But we did offer up that they could reduce that by only 5 feet to comply with the code at 25 feet. So if you have any questions for me, I'll be happy to answer that, and we'll let the appellant come in and ask any questions.
You got?
Well, go ahead.
No, you guys go. Anybody else then have a question? And I'll follow after.
Mine wasn't a question, mine was a comment.
Okay, go ahead.
It was just that in my opinion, I think Angle Homes should have done their due diligence with homes already with 30-foot setbacks right next door and all the way down Firethorn. They're all 30-foot, and here's this. And actually, they've got 2 lots here that they show. They're directly across the street from each other. One's on the north side and one's on the south side, and they both look like they have 20-foot setbacks. But at any rate,
well, if I may correct you, Board Member Russell, the ones next door and across the street are 30-foot front setbacks. The ones that are in question here are the ones that they proposed at 20 feet. With
the lot where they've excavated in the back and dropped the hillside down, is that a 30-foot setback on that lot? That would be built on the Firethorn and Triangle on the south side of the street.
On Firethorn, the lot in question is the one that they've set at 20 feet. Okay. The others that I highlighted across the street and next door to both the Clay Springs and Firethorn were submitted with 30-foot front setbacks, approved that way to comply with the code, and they were actually constructed, built, and occupied.
Yes, I know 4277 is occupied, and all the houses on down the block are occupied. And they all got 30
If you
setback.
drive through that area, almost every house is at 30 foot or more
And-
front
and-
setback.
and it's obvious that this particular lot is setting way forward. And there's plenty of room in the back, from what I can see, to have set it back the extra 10 feet.
That's our contention as well, is that there's plenty of area on the site to be able to comply with a 30-foot front setback. However, we did offer up to Angle Homes to be
And
able to
they
reduce that to
rejected
20 feet, and that would still comply with the code. So 5 feet would have still complied with the code if they would have set the foundation back at 25 feet. They chose not to accept that option and continue with their appeal instead.
I think they have to live with their problem.
Wes or Kathy, do you have any questions for Mike?
Yes, I have a couple of questions. I couldn't see anything that you were talking about that you had up there. Nothing came up on my screen. But I'm looking at the site plan for the Firethorn, the 1953C. And there is an approval stamp. I can't read the date on it. And this has 20 foot on it. And then there's an approval stamp for 517, the same one that has a 30-foot setback. And I'm trying to figure out why it's the same property, same lot, and it has two different setbacks on it. And do you have any idea why they want to make it a shorter, 20 foot instead of 30 foot? Is there a specific reason for this house? Or
I
the
think
two
we'll have to
houses
ask,
are?
I think we'll have to ask the appellant to respond to that question. I'm trying to bring up the site plans that you're asking about, Ms. Hilton. Which is the one that you said that had,
The one just says site plan, and on the top it's Rancho Santa Fe. It doesn't have, well, it does have the address, 4277 Firethorn. Oh, I see what it is. It's two different addresses. It has
Yes.
the same parcel. Oh, it's a tract. I got it. Lots next door to each other. Never mind. But I'm just wondering why they would make that change. I live a few blocks away. My house is 20-year-old. It's Angle Home. It's 30 foot. And so even when it was 20 foot, they did do them 30 foot most of the time. But I guess my biggest question is, in the emails going back and forth, Mr. Miller, dated December 19th, he stated to, I think he was talking to Mr. Engel, it says that Mike Rodriguez will initiate the zoning code addendum, which staff will recommend reverting back to the previous 20-foot setback requirements. Is that the truth, Mike? Are you going to ask to revert back, or?
well, that was interim city manager Grady Miller had suggested that. However, we haven't moved forward with doing that. As we've looked at the code, it seemed like the intent with the zoning code update was to change the front setbacks in that code in these larger lot subdivisions and the R120 code specifically to the 30-foot front setback. As I've done more research, I've discovered that other communities with these half-acre lots or larger generally have a larger setback than some of the smaller subdivisions, or some of the smaller lot subdivisions. So therefore, we haven't completely done all of our research and moved forward with moving forward with any kind of a zone change. Mr. Miller, I don't think he had all the information that we have currently before he made that comment. So we haven't decided whether we're going to move forward with that or not. The new code, as it's enacted and adopted today, does require the 30-foot front setback, and that's what's been built consistently throughout these 20,000 square foot or larger lot subdivisions.
Okay, all right, and do you know, when they went out to do the inspection, and I think there was no concrete down yet, but was all the plumbing and everything in? Is that what they would have to move at this point? Because of course they did the grading and the plumbing, I'm assuming.
It's my understanding that the way we do our inspections here is the underground plumbing is inspected at the first inspection, and then the foundation and footing inspection is done subsequent to that at the next inspection. So I believe the plumbing may have been in the ground already and looked at. However, that doesn't always tell the inspector where the footings are going to be.
Right.
It wasn't until he went on the footing and foundation inspection and setback inspection that he discovered that the 30-foot front setback wasn't being complied with.
All right. And so, and I'm assuming too that in the office, we're used to getting the same homes in the same area. And I know Angle has specific floor plans that he uses and you're used to getting them. And so it probably may have been overlooked because you're used to the same thing all the time. Although it does seem like, even though it was wrong, that it may have been a mistake by the city, but it may have cost Angle Homes some money because of the mistake. That's all. I know that right now we're just saying yay or nay on whether we allow it or not. But I would think that the city might consider, if we do say no on this, that the city might consider, you know, some kind of a help with offsetting the cost of what they did because they were approved. Maybe lowering the price of these 1 or 2 permits. So that's my opinion. I'm done.
Thank you, Kathy. Wes? You have any questions?
I have a statement. Angle Homes has been making homes in Rancho Santa Fe for a very long time, and they know it's 30 foot. And I would say it's their fault, not the city's. My personal opinion.
All right, Wes, thank you. I think probably my question to be is, and probably be to Angle Homes though, do we know for a fact when the first permit was issued back in November? Was there foundations poured? Was there slabs poured? Or were we still, when the city went out and noticed that they botched the approval?
On these 2 lots that are in question, the one on Firethorn and the one on Clay Springs, those have stopped. They have not continued in with the construction. The footings are dug. The rebar is in place. However, they've not poured any concrete into those yet. That's why that it's all being held up based on this action here. Like I said, we did offer a compromise to have them change that from 20 feet to 25 feet. They chose not to pursue that option and instead move forward with this appeal today to try to persuade us to allow them to do 20 feet rather than the required 30 feet.
All right, thank you, Mike. And any further questions?
No.
All right, thank you. Would Angle Homes like to come up and please state your name and
Thank you. My name is Tyler Engel. I'm the president of Engel Homes. I have some documents here to explain some of the background. I know those of you online.
thank you.
So there's a lot of confusion here with the 20 versus 30 feet. As far as I can tell, and I've seen and asked everyone, the required code setbacks for R20, or what we often say locally as half acres, have been 20 feet for at least 40 years. So that's been the city required setback for half acres. In Rancho Santa Fe, the original developers there, they decided in their CC&Rs to put 30 feet just because of the aesthetic that they wanted. They wanted the houses to be back a little bit further from the road. So in that subdivision, originally they were all built with a 30 feet, not because of the city rule, but because of the subdivision's rules had it be so. So then we bought some of the future phases of Rancho Santa Fe. And at the same time as the zoning code, we were going through the approvals in those phases. And we knew that there was going to be some big elevation drops in the backyards and some big drainages where the block walls would need to be pulled in further, closer to the house than on a traditional just flat lot. And so in the CC&Rs in that phase, we changed it so that it didn't require 30-foot setbacks on the CC&Rs, because we knew there was going to be some homes that didn't fit well at a 30-foot setback. They would have a very, very small backyard. So those homes, we were planning ahead of time, at the same time that the zoning code was going on, the update, to put it to 20 foot, because that's allowed in the city, because R20 has always been a 20-foot front setback. So then around the same time, 2019, 2020, we were having some issues with the city with setbacks on corner lots. So we initiated a code change and went through a long process talking with the city on what would be the best setbacks and how we could avoid problems, especially on corners and garages where the driveways should be and RV gates. And working with the city, we got this ordinance 1893 adopted. So that's pages 1, 2, and 3 in 2019. So that was after extensive discussions with planning, zoning, with building and fire. What would be the best case scenario for our setbacks and for the corners? And you can see there at the time, the front setbacks on page 3 of R120 was still a 20-foot setback. Then if you go to page 4, we were intimately involved with the city, with city staff and the consultants on the zoning code update. They invited us to be involved. We were felt lucky to be involved in the pre-meetings, in the public discussions, had emails back and forth. There were things in the code the proposed code that we didn't like, that we worked with city staff, that got adjusted. They finally put out their first draft in 2020, September of 2020. And that draft was 426 pages long of the new zoning code. And so we tried to scan through that, found some new things that we thought needed to be discussed, but were worried we were going to miss something in this huge new document. So page 4 is me emailing the city, Rich Ruggles, the planning staff, saying, hey, is there a summary or something that shows the actual changes? The whole time the city was selling this as an update. We need to make it more user-friendly, which we agreed with, reformat some things. Some things need to be formatted to agree to the current law, state and nationally. But it was huge. So we asked, is there something that explains the actual changes to the code so that we can consider those, have a discussion and debate on those. Page 5 that I'm providing you here is Rich getting with the staff, and they put a summary of these changes together of what were going to be actual changes to the code, not just reformatting, because that's what we were worried about, is what was going to be different requirements in the future. And they sent a long list, but this page 6 is the only things that affected residential zonings that they included were these items here that don't touch on anything about setbacks at all. They removed R1A, they added some new zoning designations, but nothing to do with setbacks. And we admit, or it's obvious, it is in the final code and it was in the drafts, but we're talking about one number 3 changed to a number 2 in a document that the final one ended up being 464 pages long. And a setback change is one of the biggest things you could change in a zoning code. And me, as the biggest developer and land builder in the city, would have wanted to discuss that, but it was never discussed. It was never brought up. No one said why. No one even knows who changed it, whose idea it was. It was not any of planning and zoning, because I went to all the meetings. It was not anyone on city council that suggested it. It was never brought up in any meeting. So the only explanation is either one of the city staff or the consultants decided to change the 3 to a 2 in the 464-page final document. And it was accepted that way, but nobody knew. I didn't get a chance to say anything about it. I owned all this land that I was paying millions of dollars for. I developed all this land, millions of more dollars. I adjusted my CC&Rs to have 20-foot setbacks because I thought that's what the rule was. No one at the city or us knew that there was an issue until 3 years later, we submit this permit on the house with a 20-foot setback because we thought that's the rule and that's what the CC&Rs were. We didn't have much room in the backyard, so that's why we put that on there. It was approved that way, and we weren't surprised because we thought that was the rule. But then they go inspect the setbacks. They say, oh, you're not in compliance with the setback. So we're shocked by that. Look in the code, and it was, in fact, actually changed from the 20 to 30. I keep saying the wrong one, 3 to a 2. They changed from a 2 to a 3 in the zoning code. So right now, as it is written in the code, it is a 30-foot, but for 40 years it's been 20, and no one knew that it was changed to 30. No one was allowed to discuss it. I went back to all the meetings. I was at them. Anything proposed, all the summaries of changes, it wasn't in there. It was in this one table, but it's just the tables of numbers, and I didn't catch it, and I don't think anyone at the city caught it because there was no public discourse about it. None of the property owners were notified that, hey, everyone, we're changing your setbacks. You're no longer going to allow to be able to build them at 20 foot. That never happened. So we started working with the city once we were told we couldn't continue building on those homes. The 2 homes did have compaction done, the footers dug, the rails done, rebar, and the plumbing installed, and then back compacted. We haven't poured the cement yet. And it's taken us 3 months to finally get to this meeting to ask about it. But in the meantime, with all this background, explaining all this to staff, that's when we had the emails with Mr. Miller and the city. And as board member Helton pointed out, it was still my understanding as of 5 minutes ago that the city was going to get this changed back. They agreed. They didn't know why it was changed. They couldn't find any discourse about it. There was no notification or discussions, and that the staff was going to initiate and support changing it back to a 20-foot setback. Mr. Rodriguez is having second thoughts about that now for some reason, but we still feel like that should be what happens. It's been 20-foot setback for 40 years at least. I've never heard of any issues with it, and we feel like we should still be allowed to do that. In this specific example, because of all these reasons listed, it is a very special circumstance that how we got here. We didn't know that it had been changed to a 30-foot. We definitely would have enjoyed being able to discuss that beforehand, but we've got some money invested the way they are at the 20-foot, and the city was supposed to be, according to their commitments back on December 19th, changing it back to 20-foot anyway. So a couple months from now, we were supposed to be back to the point where these permits would be allowed to go forward the way they are. So it's just really this in-between time where we just realized they were changed to 30. No one knows why, but that they're supposed to be being changed back to 20 anyway. So because of that special circumstance, we would really appreciate it if just for these 2 houses, you could grant that exception for now, and then we can work with the city, hopefully getting them changed back to 20. Again, we like to provide 30 if we have it, but it's nice to have the flexibility if the backyards really have to be smaller because of drainage, where the slopes are, the block walls, that you can slide those up to 20. So appreciate that. If anyone has any questions for me, love to answer.
I guess the only question I have is why, with all the rest of the lots that you've built in the area, you've complied with the 30-foot setback, and these two lots don't, due to drainage?
Yeah, if you pull up the site plans, or if we pull those up again, you can see where the block wall is real close to the house on one, and that's because there's kind of a drainage wash on the property on the back. And so because of where the block wall is going to be, the backyard will be real tight. And so in order to give the owner some more room, we pushed them up. One of these homes is sold, and that was one of their stipulations, like, hey, at 30 foot, it's going to be real small. Can we push it to 20? And we said, yes, we can. And then that's how we went and built it, because that was the rule we thought in our mind still. So most of the time we will do 30, and we'll continue to do 30 unless there is this situation where the backyard isn't usable. And under the code as it's been for 40 years, that was allowed, as long as the CC&R has allowed that. So it's not some new thing.
And wouldn't the 5-foot serve the adequate distance rather than going with the full 30 to cut it back to a 25, like the city offers?
Yeah, that's better than 30, but I'd have to pay a bunch of money to put it back the way it was, recompact everything, and then redo the work again up further forward. So that's why we're asking for the exception, because of all the history behind it and the costs invested.
While you're on that subject, what is your cost offhand to relocate the foundation, the plumbing, all that at this point?
It might be random guess, $3,000 or $4,000 per lot for the two lots, so maybe $8,000 or so.
All right. Wes and Kathy, do you have any questions for Engel Homes?
I thank you very much for explaining this to us, because I assumed, since you usually do 30 foot, that there had to be some reason for the 20 foot for these two homes. And I know that in this neighborhood, it's very normal to have detached garages, swimming pools, things like that. Mainly detached garages, you need that room in the back. So I'm glad you spoke, and I do understand more about this. That's all I have.
Thank you, Kathy. Wes?
I agree with Kathy's statement.
All right, thank you. I'm very familiar with that area there, Tyler. And I know what you're talking about, because I believe the lot you're talking about, there's right now a gap in the block walls so I can access, and I get out and explore on my bike and ride through all those areas, so I'm very well aware of those two lots. And I think other than that, you're probably saying about $10,000 to relocate and get everything straightened back out at this time, and you're only talking two lots.
Yeah. So until we get things sorted out with actually changing the code going forward, we'll make sure not to apply on any lots that we feel like might need a 20-foot setback until we can comply fully with whatever the code is at the time. So other than these ones, we'll only submit 30s unless the zoning code gets changed.
You did bring up, I believe you said in the Rancho Santa Fe, the previous builders, the CC&Rs, they had a 30 in them, and upon you purchasing the land, do you was that null and void then, or you still had to?
No, the CCNRs get recorded by phase. And so the old phases still have their 30-foot, code and covenant regulation. That's a deed restriction. Where the new phase that we've more recently developed, we took out that 30-foot requirement.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Any further comments? Any comments from the audience? All right, I see none. All right, I bring it to discussion to the board.
I guess my only reaction is I just didn't want to see this set a precedent where, oh gosh, they allowed these two to do it, why can't we do it, kind of thing. Says it's just going to be these two homes, yeah, that's all I have. I just didn't want to see it setting a precedent for more and more of this happening out there, and we stick with the code as written.
Fair enough. Kathy and Wes, any comments?
Well, I don't believe Angle owns all of that property, so there might be other builders that want to come in and they see, oh, Angle got 20 or Angle got 25. The standard's the standard, and I think we should stay with that.
Well, I think here, Wes, we're talking 2 lots, so we got to make
Yeah.
a decision on the 2 lots, not what
Right,
what
okay, yes,
someone else is going to plan to do in the future, because we have that precedent in the code, what the
Right.
future will be. We're just talking these 2 lots here.
I certainly don't believe that they did this purposely or any kind of malice or trying to, they weren't trying to get away with anything. They were working with what they had, and he did a good explanation of it. This is tough. For me, I'm in real estate. This is a tough call because I want to go with what the city says. I do understand from the time, like he said, when this was put into the books, and now there's been a lot of turnover in planning and zoning in the city, and sometimes people don't know what's going on. So I can see both sides. That's it.
All right, thank you, Kathy. I need a motion.
Well, I'll make a motion that we do not deny the application for variance.
I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
I said I'll make a motion that we deny the application for the variance of the 20-foot setback.
All right, do I have a second?
I will second it.
All right, I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay?
Nay.
Motion failed.
And
Can we make a motion that, and I don't know if I can do this or not, because I know that you're asking for a yes or no on this, but can we make a motion that we do deny it, but the city will give them at least 5,000? I don't, what's it cost for a permit on one of these homes?
I'm a little rusty here, so
So,
Carl, go ahead.
so with that motion failed, obviously the board can try and come up or craft another motion. The board can't compel the city to pay anything. According to the statute and the zoning code, the board has the ability to basically determine if a variance is needed. And I think that's what Tyler's asking for based on the size, shape, topography, location, or surroundings of the property. The board cannot make changes to the code itself, meaning the text, so the text says 30, the board cannot say it should be 20, but they can say this property, because of these special circumstances, it's okay to make that modification. The question then goes back to, as long as this is not a self-imposed hardship, which means it's a problem that was created by the applicant themselves. So I don't know if I'm answering your question or just stating a few things that make it more complicated.
Does anybody know what the cost of a permit is for one of these homes? For the city, what a cost is?
I'm going to take a wild guess. I believe that our permit fees for a home this size are, and Tyler, maybe you can nod or shake your head, is around $6,000 or $7,000 in total fees.
If
Is
you
that
didn't
it?
hear that, it's a
Is it-
guess of $6,000 or $7,000
Cool.
in fees.
Okay. I'm gonna make a motion that we allow the variance because I believe that there was mistakes made by the city. And I don't think that Angle Homes should have to be charged that amount of money and then have that amount of money again to move everything, the compaction, everything that needs to be done. I don't think it's gonna make a huge deal in the neighborhood. It's gonna make a big difference. And the buyers will get more backyard that they need. So that's, I make the motion to approve it.
Well, we already had a motion to deny it, so
And like I say, that motion failed, so it's always fun when we have these ties. We can't go back and forth trying to come to a resolution, but I think if you have a second motion, I think you're perfectly acceptable to see if there's a second and proceed with that. But I would suspect if you have another tie, then ultimately the application fails. And I think this is just giving more expanded opportunity for the applicant to be able to proceed.
So Kathy, would you like to restate your motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve the variance for Angle Homes.
For the two lots?
Yes, just for the two lots, yes.
Okay, a motion. Do I have a second? I hear none. Motion died.
The application fails.
Applicant failed then. Okay, item number 4, call to the public. Comment from the public. We already went over that. I guess the next one is a motion for adjournment. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Do I have a second?
I will second that.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, approved. Motion adjourned.